When I went to Harmonious Twin Flame Union, the consciousness state, it was March 2020. Right after that, the pandemic, as they called it, reached my country and my place. It was a strange time. Actually, I got sort of stuck at home in this whole sort of pandemic situation when I was just in Harmonious Twin Flame Union. Finding out how I truly felt, what that meant to me, making a lot of walks in nature, and every day doing my work in my home office. For 1.5 years, I was feeling into this whole thing, like where was I? What was going on? That was when that whole pandemic also played out. It was, I think, in a way, a perfect situation for me, because people would start to need to reframe their work and reinvent themselves because of all kinds of weird restrictions that people thought, at least they thought for the most part, that it would be sensible to do because of this pandemic shizzle. And I was just restructuring myself on a much more fundamental level, right? It was like, my gosh, yeah, who am I? Now I finally came into union with my true twin flame. I finally got it that this has always been the one and only true twin flame. I got rid of my illusions. I got rid of the false twin flame, the last false twin flame. I went to Harmonious Twin Flame Union with that peace in my heart, in which I chose, even though it was very difficult to choose to really pursue this love and nothing else anymore, ever in the future. I chose it. And that brought me, this choice brought me in the consciousness state of Harmonious Twin Flame Union. And I was going to feel out what did this brought me and where it brought me. And my entire life was, I don't know how to say, like broken into pieces, like who I thought I was, what I felt like my life was like smashed into smithereens. It was just completely gone. It was like bombed, who I was, my identity. It was bombed. It was just. And I think it sort of fitted me, and everybody kept away a little bit from me because of this scared of illness mentality. I wasn't so scared of it, but I understood that if you would be truly, sensitive or like vulnerable, that you could catch something. I understood that. I wasn't so scared, but anyway, we're not going to talk about that topic in particular. But I wanted to mention that because it was sort of a strange, funny time for everyone, but for me in particular, very fundamentally. And after 1.5 years of doing that, Divine Mother called me closer and I made a trip. I think this was possibly the high point of the whole pandemic. And I was going into a plane to take off. I'm not kidding you. To another country, to from the Netherlands in Europe to Portugal. And because Divine Mother had just said in my heart, she whispered in my ear, "You're going to go there." So I went there and I did what she said every day. And it was like to honor my relationship with Divine Mother. And that's where she gave me a deeper healing as well. And that's where the healing wave that started for me after Harmonious Union, the spiritual healing wave that swept up all my psychological and physical and mental problems, was more pronounced after 1.5 years inside Harmonious Union, and I went to Portugal. Then it became more pronounced. Now I was really settling into this healing wave definitively. And I actually wanted to make this video to tell you a little bit about what I did. You know, this is in your future. Who knows what you're gonna do, what you feel inspired to, but I just feel now inspired to share this with you. So here it is. So when that set in on a much more profound scale inside of me and I accepted it, I I stayed home a lot and I started to work on several topics in my daily life. It was not like I was not doing anything, although it was a lot of healing and it was a lot of staying home, but I also have my office at home and whatnot, of course. So that continued. But I also took half days off in the morning to work on my things. And that sort of brought me everything over the last couple of years. And I didn't really know where that would go. But now looking back, it makes so much sense. And if you feel, maybe you could already start to work on such topics because it might just make you feel better because I could inspire you with it, right? And that is that I started to work on a couple of elements of my very intimate, practical daily life that Divine Mother showed me were deeply, well, hurt, not complete, not loved in the inner child. And they needed to be loved in the inner child because that actually gives you a normal, healthy foundation for a human psychology. And we were going to redo that, or actually like doing that for the first time in a truly like, well, in a way that really works, right? So Divine Mother inspired me to go work on my food and body, for instance. So I started to redo, I already had done a lot of holistic techniques on my body and whatnot. But I started sort of a new healing wave in working on food in my body. And I completely studied and tried it out and executed it and found it and like did exactly that food plan for myself for 1.5 years and then added another 1.5 year to it. And boy, did that help me. Oh my gosh, do I feel better. Like black and white. Absolutely, completely transformed my relationship with my body, how I feel about myself. You know, now I understand that your body is supposed to, you're not supposed to like feel your body. It's supposed to be something that just feels flowy and yeah, like congruent and warm and cozy, as if you're like embracing yourself all day long. And it just feels good and it feels warm and it feels loving. So I essentially invited Divine Mother into my food. And this is what happened. I was eating truly nourishing food that truly made me feel fulfilled and good and happy and healthy. That was truly containing the nutrients that I needed. And I truly only did that and nothing else. And I gave myself everything that I needed. And boy, did that help me. Wow. And I finally also got the body that I was always supposed to be getting. The body that was like the full expression of my genetics and epigenetics and whatnot. Like my full like soul, I would even say. And my body became this vehicle that you don't feel anymore because it's just, it flows and functions. And you know, and it's beautiful because there's this natural sexiness of just being voluptuous and alive and feeling good. it was transformative, especially because I look back on a childhood in which, I mean, I wasn't even allowed to eat enough as a child, and we were not poor at all. My parents had literally tons in the bank, like 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, more and more and more in the bank, sitting there doing nothing. But we were not allowed to eat enough every single meal. And there was no future in sight where that could change. Because it was more important to be controlled than to be nourished and loved. And that was the whole, that was the whole message of food and body in my childhood. And my body was controlled, and sometimes not even in like, you're not allowed to express yourself as a girl. You're not allowed to wear bikinis to the sea in the summer because that is too naked. And maybe you think that that is control, but I was also controlled the other way round. It was all so fucked up, you have no idea. I mean, the idea of control was everywhere, but in the direction in which you needed to be controlled, well, that was just random. That side, who knows? Really crazy. So I needed to go topless to like beaches or whatnot because that was the norm. And I didn't feel that at all. But you needed to feel it because that was, you needed to do what you were told or else. And that was the control. So I remember that, when I was in my teenage years and I knew it was wrong, but you were sort of not allowed, you were not allowed. And that was like internalized by your sort of psychological, they have that super ego, maybe you could call that, or conscience, or maybe even something else. That is now starting to control yourself, you see. And I remember in my teenage years that I truly felt like, yeah, I feel empty, unnourished, sad, taken advantage of, gone over my boundaries, raped even by clothes and food, let alone other things, but they were also there. I feel empty. From here down, I don't feel my body because I'm not allowed to. And I sort of knew that it was wrong. But that was just like, I have to be like this because I need to be how they tell me I should be. Well, when you're taken advantage of by a narcissist as a child, that makes you empty on very many more avenues of life, topics of life. But let's just try to sort of contain this within the topics that I was trying to talk about right now. And that is besides clothes and food and body. Well, here we go. I already stepped over to the other topic. So I was redoing my food with Divine Mother. And the other avenue that afterwards Divine Mother started to inspire me for is redoing my clothes. So what was I wearing? My wardrobe. And I mean, I already started talking about how I was also abused as a child in that topic. And then Divine Mother started to work through me to work that out in a very new way. So I started to buy secondhand clothes, to restructure my entire wardrobe, to buy new clothes to cover my new body that had a new size of garment. And I started to see what kind of garments I needed, how many I needed, what I would feel comfortable in, what kind of style I wanted to portray, what colors fit me. And all of this took me around 4 years or so to work out. And I was looking on this website for secondhand clothes. Every piece is like 3 to 15 euro or something, and make collections of them and then let them send over and trying them on. And what you don't want, you can also send them back. Is really cool. And first I made a whole new collection of some things, and then later on I was like, well, but my body has grown even more, and I actually want to be this heavy because this feels good. So I actually need to let go of a whole bunch of things that already start to be too small, and then I can grow a little bit more in the future. And then, in my new size. And I love it and I like it. And I think this is what it should be. And now I can take on my experience with buying these clothes and for tweaking that in a new way for a bigger size. So then we were going to do a bigger size. And I also realized that I had been trying out colors, and then I suddenly remembered that I had a natural color scheme because of the undertone of my skin, not my skin tone in itself. It's not about race or anything here. It's like because this is for everyone in the whole world. You have a certain undertone of your skin, no matter what overtone your skin has, and that can be warm or cool or whatever. And I suddenly remembered that I once already was tested for that, and that I was a bright spring. I was like, dang, I did it wrong. So I started to redo all these clothes with the right colors. And that was a whole adventure. And I started to watch videos on colors and try out styles and think about what kind of activities I wanted to do now and in the near future. And what kind of clothes I might need for that, and try them out, and and it was a whole lot of fun. And that was sort of my hobby for quite some time. And now I understand that, Divine Mother wanted me to experience true health in my body through food, and wanted me to experience safety, emotional safety, through clothes, through my wardrobe. And the result was that I have never felt physically better and never felt emotionally more safe. I never did my wardrobe with Divine Mother, but now we did. I feel emotionally safe. So I love that, that this practical daily life topic for me was just an expression of making myself be emotionally safe. Wow. It was just amazing. And there was another avenue. Maybe we could talk about even more, but for this video we're going to keep it at 3. So the third one is Divine Mother wanted me to go through money healing. There were certain topics in my money and certain ways that had happened that told me that I was far below zero, although I could still have my house and do daily life. And she started to tell me, we're going to go on a journey from there below to zero and then up. And I was like, wow, I didn't know. So she inspired me to start this financial diary. So I opened a document on my computer, and it was my financial journey. So I was taking stock, like, what do I have? What are my debts? What does my life cost? What comes in? What goes out every month? Where does it come from? Where do I want it to come from? And I started to resolve the matters that were in this story, which were sometimes issues that were so difficult to face for me. Like, how did I get this certain debt here and the other one over there? And what does that represent? And how do you get out of that? And there were topics in my financial healing that I knew I would need to go through, that I had no idea how I would ever in my entire life be able to go through that alive. I thought I was gonna die if I would need to face that. One of them was, and this is an example that I've talked about, well, a whole couple of times on my channel right now, but I think it's an awesome example. It was about, well, this sounds weird, but I had a leakage situation with water in my kitchen, and this is an apartment and someone lives below me. Now, my below neighbor told me that it had leaked in his apartment, and there were some years that I didn't realize that. And then there were some years that we knew it, but we still needed to fully resolve it. Now, this sounds weird, like how can you not know? And how can there be years in which you still need to resolve that physically, and or then the financial consequences as well of that? How is that possible? Well, that was also possible because for some years nobody lived there, and my below neighbor, whose house it was already back then, he temporarily lived somewhere else, so he was never there. So only when he came back he saw that it happened and whatnot. And then he sort of, we sort of tried to deal with the thing, how can I say, the things at first hand a little bit, but then actually there was more to deal with, and we knew we needed to talk about that later on to resolve it better. So that was still in the future. And we even uncovered more leakages. It was really, really disastrous. And there was also a certain feeling that this guy gave me, whose house that was, that made it extremely challenging for me. And that was made come true when we finally, stuck our heads together to resolve this matter, in a friendship base, I thought. That's what I thought. Then it had turned out that he actually had given me sort of sexual insinuations in my own home that I did not like and that were unwelcome, and that he had lied to me. Well, these are just some small aspects of what that all was about. And it was all so disgusting to me. But this whole thing of the leakage of the water was the leakage of the energy and water, feeling space and water. That's really the thing. Energy is also money. So leaking my money, leaking my energy, leaking my sexual energy outside of my union, outside of my body, outside of my safety. That was the whole topic. So this money healing topic was just all encompassing of everything we talked about before. Maybe this step goes a little too quick. I'm not sure. Maybe it did go too quick for you. I'm sorry. How can I make that more clear? So the symbolic value of water leakage from my kitchen outside my home means that I leak my energy. I had also been leaking my energy in the past. That's why I had debts, because I was apparently had been spending money where it was below zero, so that you could also call leaking your energy. I had been leaking my energy in my twin flame union because we had forever not been in an intimate relationship with each other. But I did with a lot of other people in the past. At this moment, that's in a far past, but nevertheless, for me, or anyway, maybe in my heart, I was still stopping this, And that is symbolic for what happened there with this neighbor, with this leakage, with the fact that he was lying, that he was sexual insinuating to me, and my disgust with this whole situation, and my feeling that I would never be able to go through this situation alive, and not having any idea how I would get the money to even pay him. And it all got resolved in the end because Divine Mother took me step by step by step through my financial healing diary. And I resolved every aspect of it, almost every. And it was miraculous. Every aspect got resolved. And how? By facing it and doing my inner freaking work, which is the same technique as twin flame inner work, that you don't stop doing when you're in harmonious twin flame union. You continue doing it afterwards. So that's what I did. And I have never made myself feel more financially safe. It was miraculous. My healing wave after harmonious union was about wardrobe, food and body, and money healing that was actually everything at once, and encompassing all the other topics too. Because it was eventually the healing of me leaking my energy outside of my union. And since my harmonious union consciousness state, I had chosen to repair that. And that healing wave just walked through my entire daily life in the ways and many more ways that I've just discussed with you. And the whole leaking my energy issue between me and my twin flame, and nobody can actually come between us because we are true twin flames in harmonious union. But physically that needed to be worked out. So that means the leaking the energy to work that out of your union physically to completion, so that the truth of the matter that you are close and intimate and nobody can ever come between that was made come true in the flesh, in the world, through the healing wave after harmonious twin flame union. And this was the story how that ended. Mother and father healing was inside of it. Narcissistic and sexual trauma healing was inside of it. Clothes, food, body, money healing was inside of it. Debt release was inside of it. Twin flame love was inside of it. Release of remnants of former partners standing in our union, which was leaking the energy, was part of it. And now I'm here, cleared, purified, and I hope this helped.